What's up, guys? How you doing? I'm Paul.
I'm Morgan.
In today's video, we're talking about something that could get us in some trouble. What's new?
What's new?
Slap it on me, Jack. No, honestly, Morgan came up with this topic for today because of something that I posted on my Instagram yesterday. And it turns out, and I get it, just the world we live in, the world of influencers, of 2022, like everybody can do anything they want. Okay, stop me.
Hold them back.
Wait, you guys don't know where I'm going to fall on this, egalitarian or complementarian. I'm about to go there, but Morgan, tell them to subscribe first before we really launch into this topic.
Okay, he keeps talking. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe. We're giving commentary on culture, social issues, and faith to help you be in the world,
but of the word. And that's what we're going to try to do with this topic that is highly controversial and could make some people mad. So we ask everyone right now, as will Morgan and I, Lord, humble us. Help us to go to your word, not with these strong preconceived notions and what culture has been pouring into us, but help us to read the word for what the word says and help us to approach these things in love and humility. Amen. Shout out to our patrons. You guys know, and if you watch the Patreon, what do we call it? Credit roll at the end of our videos. Those, you guys, help us to continue to do this channel. We don't get many brand deals because of the subject matter. We've had a number of brand deals cancel us because of our conservative Christian content.
Literally one last week.
So the fact that you guys partner with us monthly allows us to continue to do this. So thank you all so much. You mean a lot. If you want to be one of those patrons, go to patreon.com/Paulandmorganshow. We link it below every video and we greatly appreciate it. All right, Morgan, why don't we start from the very beginning?
Great.
Which was, I decide, we were sitting on the couch. I had a reel that I wanted to make on Instagram, and we're going to play the reel that kicked everything off. We make the reel, and then we're trying to decide on like the caption to put. Go ahead and play that reel, Morgan. Play it.
Here we go.
Do you feel that your wife is very controlling in the relationship?
Tell him no. Tell him no, babe.
No. It's a good reel. It's a good reel.
Yes, it is.
I was trying to decide what should I make the caption. I'm throwing around a few things. One of the ended up what you saw there, which was what? What did it say?
Point of view. Way.
Point of view.
Boop, boop, bop, boop.
Wife makes you the homemaker so she can run her ministry, and it's a wife that is controlling. Ultimately, the real, and by the way, follow us on Instagram if you don't. You guys, we post a lot of stuff on there daily. At Paul Olligus, at Morgan Olligus. The point of the real, you guys see the point. It actually was getting a lot of love, but then someone that's a follower, I believe, she gently said, we should kind of push back on it. So that got us thinking, talking a little bit, and then Morgan today was like, why don't we talk about that in today's video?
Let's talk about it. So I feel like this is going to be like a two-part thing that will be done in one video. Part one is talking about just like, can women lead ministries? Is that okay? Is that biblical?
What does the Bible say? What about when Paul said women are not permitted to speak in the church?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Whoa.
And then two was like the second part.
The second one is more just women kind of working outside the home. Maybe you have kids. We have this kind of Christian idea of women should be homemakers, but it's 2022 and Proverbs 31. So yeah, it's like the biblical idea of a woman maybe leading a church or leading a man type thing. And then it's just women working outside of the home with men being the stay-at-home caretakers. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Morgan, start us off.
Well,
how about this? Let's start by saying that as divisive as this is, we see this, I do. Morgan, I know you actually might feel even more passionate than I do in some regards, but I see this as I guess you could call it a secondary issue. It doesn't mean that there's not weight there. It doesn't mean that there's not implications and importance, but it's not a salvation issue. So I hope that someone that is just truly convinced and maybe is still unwavering after we give our take can still hear this, and we can love each other.
Yeah.
And there doesn't have to be intense hostility, because it's not that salvation issue that we're going to get on here and just start preaching and saying, you have to see it this way. The Bible is so clear. This is heaven or hell. It's not that. It's not that. It's not that. It's not.
Okay, buddy. Yeah, if there are women pastors out there leading churches, I don't think that they're going to hell in any way, shape, or form. I said this to Paul earlier, that I do, though, think that they're going to be held accountable for their children, for their marriage. Like, the Lord is going to look through that with them when they're up in heaven after they've died. And like, God is going through your life. And I do believe God will possibly be like, you did not fulfill your role as a mother.
So let's get to that.
You did not fulfill your role as a wife, because you were so preoccupied with a ministry which did great things, but you slacked over here.
Well, let's get to that. But real quick, that's assuming that this woman preacher or ministry leader is preaching good stuff and is not a straight up false teacher. Because that's a whole nother ballgame. We're talking about someone, that is preaching solid biblical truth.
Yes.
But it's still kind of the controversy of, should she be in this position?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, like, Paul's Real, what he was going to first title it was just it
was going to be along the lines of, this is just sadly most Christian marriages where the wife is sitting there. That was Morgan's hand. You saw it saying, tell him, babe, that I'm not controlling. Tell him that.
Yeah. And it's just like this idea that most marriages, even Christian marriages, you see the woman wears the pants, she's the leader of the house, she's in control, she makes all the decisions, yada, yada, yada. And that's not to put the blame on all women. A lot of men don't stinking step up and lead.
They would rather it be that way. Just to take the responsibility off of me.
Yeah, so I don't want to put that all on women. There are definitely men who are just just do whatever you want to do. I'm out. I'll just be here and make some money for you, I guess.
Very sad.
But yeah, anywho, as far as just ministry, women in ministry, I just want to put it out there at the very beginning of just I do not think that women cannot be in ministry. I do not think that women cannot lead ministries. I think that there is a biblical way, though, to do it. And as I was doing a little bit of research, I love the website gotquestions.org. I just feel like it's a great website. And so I linked several articles in the description below if you guys want to check those out afterwards. But one paragraph or little 2 or 3 sentences that I found that were really good is this. It says, women are called to many areas of service, and they receive gifts from the Holy Spirit just as men do. They should fulfill those callings and use those gifts just as men should. Mm-hmm. Women with a gift for teaching should use that gift, but within scriptural guidelines. And it says those guidelines can be found and it lists a few verses.
Cool.
Yeah, and so I just think this idea of women can't teach at all, women cannot be in ministry, in no way, shape, or form can they be involved in the church. That's not biblically true. And some churches, some denominations have taken that and just ran with it. And they're doing a discredit to God and the gifts that the Lord gives to women, because there are women out there who can teach incredibly. There are women out there who can speak publicly. But I think a good example of someone who runs a ministry is Lisa Turkers. Her ministry is for women specifically.
So she's not teaching and leading men.
Yeah, and that was something that throughout several of these articles that I read on Got Questions, it was just making it clear of, let's be careful, because the Bible does make it clear women should not be the spiritual authority over men in any way, shape, or form. We need to be careful with that. And sadly, I see a lot of women who have maybe started out with a women's ministry or just didn't and have just been speaking and teaching and preaching to men and women and have become almost a spiritual authority over women and men.
So let me bring this up then, Morgan. You pretty much just laid it out there and said it's clear scripturally women should not have spiritual authority over a man.
Mm-hmm.
There would be, I want to get to this, the egalitarian and the complementarian. Egalitarian would actually say, no, it's at least I'm putting words here in your mouth, but and pull up the definition. I actually got a picture of it. This is a egalitarian versus complementarian in regards to marriage, but it's much bigger than this. Read complementarian, Morgan.
The belief that a husband should be the spiritual head of his family and that husband and wife will have different and complementary roles in their marriage.
And real quick, that's saying there still is that we have equal value. We're loved equally by God, but there are different roles.
Yeah.
So that's a complementarian.
And then egalitarianism is the belief that there are no separate gender roles in marriage and that husband and wife will lead the family collaboratively.
No different gender roles. And this is, I would say that this kind of the two sides here could be taken, it is taken beyond marriage to the church. And so you have some egalitarian churches that are saying, oh, it's equal, no different roles. Women can be pastors, men can be pastors, women can teach men can teach women. So you would say, based off of just these definitions and stuff, you would be, and I would be as well, complementarian. Because the egalitarians that are in the chat right now and that are watching the playback would say, what? You just said that women can't teach men? How dare you?
Right. Yes.
Or they would say, well, you got to look at it with a lot more nuance than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would just say, that's fine. You can totally think that. Go read the articles that I shared, and just see what you think after reading that. Not that I think it's going to totally change your mind, but it does give a different perspective, because these answers on gotquestions.org definitely come from a mindset of complementarianism. So, yeah.
And we are going to get to some scripture verses here in a moment, and I'm going to get to some of the stuff that you all wrote me on my Instagram.
Yes. Yeah, as I was just preparing for this and thinking on this, it's like, what is the role of not a woman, but a wife, and then a wife who becomes a mother? Because a single woman roles might look a little different than a wife and then a mother.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, not to say that a single woman can be a preacher and a married woman cannot. That doesn't work.
It's getting more into the second part of it, which is a mother. She's got a family, she's got a husband, and yet she's out there leading these ministries,
right?
Leaving her kids for long hours for the husband to take care of.
Yeah, and it's sad because you see this in churches a lot, not with women, but the pastors of the churches and their children and their families are kind of like falling apart behind the scenes because the pastor is he's so focused on being a pastor to this church that he can't pour into his own family. And I believe God's going to hold that man accountable. And I think for women, when they step into ministry roles, leading big ministries or whatever, it tends to, and I'm not saying all, again, I think that there are,
This is Morgan's new canteen.
I think that there are incredible examples of women who have led and are leading ministries right now, who pour into their families, who make sure their husband is the priority, their children are the priority, and then they do their ministry work.
So you're saying like Superwoman?
Yeah.
Or what's the
Superwoman?
Robbie Margot? What's the girl
Robbie?
who plays Wonder Woman?
Gal Gadot.
Gal Gadot. Some of the similar letters there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those would be Wonder Women.
Yes. But I do think that they exist. But I think that honestly their ministries might look a little different. And I think this idea of like, if you're gonna lead a ministry, it has to be huge and giant and all over the world. But it's like your ministry could literally just be like serving your neighbors in your, whatever.
And that's one thing that one of our patrons wrote in and said, like, ministries don't have to look like, if you are literally taking care of your husband, the house, and the kids, that's absolutely a ministry.
And that's the thing. I think we need to tweak our mindsets of what ministry looks like. Because, yeah, when you become a mother, your first ministry is to be the wife and the mother, to be raising your children. That's your ministry. That is. And so I guess the question is, can it be the husband's ministry while the woman is out of the house working? Like, can we switch that?
So can we switch them on their head? That makes me think, to answer that question, I would say that can happen. Like I would say that would be the exception. Here's where I'm presenting more of my perspective. If the wife is leading this ministry, running a ministry, doing all this ministry work, and the husband literally has become the homemaker, mm-hmm. I'm kind of like, all right, let's be careful to normalize that. But can that be the appropriate thing? I would say you do look at, like, maybe the Old Testament. You look at Deborah. Was a woman judge the norm? No. Male judges seem to be the norm, but God used a woman, and God used her very powerfully. Could God use a woman where the man is literally taking care of the home and the kids while the woman goes out? I would say potentially so, but I think it should be the exception. And I think that, and some of you might be like, no, it's not the exception. It shouldn't be done at all.
Right.
Based off of perhaps, I think it was Jude 2. So let me pull that up real quick. Morgan, I know you're wanting to say something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Titus 2. Yeah. Titus 2 says this. But as for you, blah, blah, blah. Hold on. Okay, it says, this is verse 3. Older women likewise are to be reverent in behavior, not slanderers or slaves to much wine. They are to teach what is good, and so train the young women to love their husbands and children, to be self-controlled, pure, working at home, kind, and submissive to their own husbands. He kind of lays it out there. Is he saying that has to be done 100% of the time? He's given this rule.
Yeah.
Work in the home.
Yeah, and it's interesting that he says older women, because my thought is older women, either their children have left their homes already, their children are older and like they're in college and maybe live at home still, but like they're adults, whatever. That's kind of like
older women are to train younger women.
Yeah, so like an older woman can go out and lead a ministry and like
interesting.
Leave the home and get out there and do things, whatever. Not to say younger women can't leave the home, but I do think that, like Paul was saying, it should be more of an exception than the regular, the normal, the ordinary. I think, like, to mess with God's creation, to mess with God's, like, roles that he's given men and women, it's not gonna turn out too amazing, in my opinion. Like, and to look down on the roles of a woman and to say, like, no, I desire those roles, I desire this lifestyle, God's roles aren't good enough, like, is sad. And I think it's the way the world has made us think of, like, we have to go to college, we have to get a full-time job, we have to be grinding it out and being super successful. Like, that's not what God is looking at. That's not how God is viewing success, and we need to get that out of our minds.
Morgan, what would you say to this? Because I saw several people kind of respond to me something like this. Well, it just depends as far as women going out and leading ministries, men working at home. It depends. Is the woman called to this? Mm-hmm. So many women, and I've heard this a number of times, women saying, well, I'm called. God is calling me to do this. God's calling me to go out and lead these types of ministries and work. God's calling me to work these jobs. outside of the home.
That's interesting because I feel like, okay, maybe he has called you to that. But if you're a wife, he called you to be a wife first. If you're a mother/wife, he called you to be a wife/mother first. So whatever that other calling is, you need to figure out how you can do it while still fulfilling those first two very important callings of being a wife and then a mother. And then everything else falls in line. But if you can't do that other calling without like leaving your kids all the time, without missing out on dinners with your husband, without being able to whatever with your family, then that is not something that God is calling you to. I think we put way too much emphasis on like this idea that God is calling me to this. I'm really gifted in this area, so I must need to be doing this full time, all the time, always. It must be the most important thing in my life.
Interesting.
And I don't think that's the case.
I know this is, just what we're talking about right now is kind of hard for some to hear, but if you appreciate the dialogue going on right now, give this video a thumbs up, help us out, show some love. Again, I still think I stand by that there can be exceptions. Obviously, you see Paul saying, like, if you don't get married, that gives you an even better opportunity to devote yourself to the serving and ministry of the Lord. Mm-hmm. And so just one obvious thing is if you're feeling so like this fire in my belly that the Lord has placed such a heavy call on me to do these ministries, consider not getting married. I'm not saying that if you get married, you can't maybe together as a unit go out, or even just the woman, like go out and do a ministry. But I do think make sure that the ministry of your husband, of your kids is taken care of and is in order.
Yeah.
Big.
And, I don't want it to sound like we're saying, like, once you get married, you can't do anything else. You have to cook, clean, and have sex with your husband, and that's it. That's all you get to do.
Well, what would you say to the Proverbs 31 woman? Let's push back on what we're talking about a little bit, because the Proverbs 31 woman, which is, we look at that as just this amazing example of a godly wife. Mm-hmm. She's working to some extent. What do you make of that? Can we read that real quick? Do you have it?
Well, as I was reading, like, what does a godly wife look like? They talked a lot about Proverbs 31.
I have it right here if we want to look at a few.
Well, this little paragraph that I saved says, Proverbs 31 reveals she is enterprising and ambitious. The Proverbs 31 wife is a small business owner. She makes and sells garments. She makes her own business decisions independently, and she alone decides what to do with her earnings. Notice, however, her earnings do not go towards shoes or bags, but to buy a field where she can plant a vineyard, something that will benefit the whole family. And I just think that that's interesting because, like, I'm all for women running a business or, like, starting up a side job that is going to benefit her family in the long run. I think that that's really cool. And, like, that's something that Paul and I...
And that's literally what we're doing.
Yeah.
To an extent.
And, like, when I give birth to Luca, it's not like I'm just all of a sudden going to quit my vlog channel or quit my Instagram. Like, I still am going to pour into those things, but there has to be a balance. Like, I have to remember that that's my side thing. My most important thing is pouring into my husband, raising up my child, and, like, trusting that Paul is taking care of us in other ways, financially or whatever. And so, yeah, like, we're not down on women running businesses because, like this says, Proverbs 31, she was crushing it. But I think it becomes just, like, dangerous of when, like, the woman loses sight of what her first priorities are or why she even started that side business. And now the side business has grown into a full business and it's taken over her home, and now she's buying a store and she's away from the house all the time and blah, 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 blah.
Here's one other thing, Morgan. Someone said, someone wrote me, and we kind of had a little bit of back and forth, and this person, female, was defending just that, like, let's not go too far with the complementarian of saying that there's certain roles that women can't do type thing. She was kind of defending that women can run ministries and the man stays home with the kids. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned this verse that I just read in Titus 2, where it says, young women working at home, self-controlled, pure, working at home, so forth, so forth. And she said, well, we got to look at that in context of what was happening back then, who was Paul speaking to, the context of that time period. And I do think it's very important to research. So I commend her. Research, look at maybe look at a number of passages on the topic, look at what was going on, who was Paul speaking to, what was going on in that time period. Important. But I think one thing you got to take note, you do have to be careful with just kind of almost, and I'm not saying she was doing this, but shrugging off something that was said in the Old Testament or New Testament because, it was for that time, it was for that people. Paul, so you got the Titus 2 passage. Paul also says this is first when he's writing to 1 Timothy in 1 Timothy 2, he says, let women learn quiet, and this is where it gets really controversial. Sorry.
Dun, dun, dun.
And I don't want to dwell too much on like the certain aspects of this, but I'm telling you for this one specific part here, but it says, let a woman learn quietly with all submissiveness. I do not permit a woman to teach or to exercise authority over a man. Rather, she is to remain quiet. And this is the main part I want to focus on. For Adam was formed first, then Eve, and Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived and became a transgressor. And then it talks a little more. Women will be saved through childbearing and so forth.
Yeah.
Look at some commentary on that because that's packed. Specifically, like the woman being saved through childbearing. I was kind of reading some stuff on there, assuming they continue in the faith and love and holiness. I do think it's important, or it's interesting, because the one person I was talking to on Instagram was saying, well, we got to look at the context. The context of that was Paul was saying this to that time period because the women weren't educated as much, and so it wouldn't have made as much sense. And it's like, well, Paul says right here, Adam was formed first, then Eve. Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived first, type thing. So there's like more precedence for this general rule, which is wives, make sure that you're taking care of the home, husbands being out there working. Also, it says in Genesis, let me see. Genesis chapter 2, verse 20. But for Adam, no suitable helper was found. So the Lord caused man to fall into a deep sleep, and he provided this helper, Eve. That's kind of the first example we're seeing of Eve being a helper, and not necessarily, even though obviously, like, I'm serving Morgan, I'm loving Morgan as Christ loved the church. That's my goal. Huge responsibility. But you guys can push back. Eve was the helper, the first helper. Wasn't necessarily the other way around, where I'm saying, Morgan, what ministry do you have? Okay, I'm going to come alongside and help. I'll take care of the kids while you do your ministry.
Right.
It could be the exception, perhaps. I do think there are exceptions where God calls very special things and he equips, but I think it's the exception.
Yeah, I agree. And like, again, I just want to make it clear that I don't think that this means, women can't lead in certain areas and women can't teach in certain ways. And like, God personally has gifted me with worship leading.
You're a better public speaker to a live audience than I am any day.
Yeah. And so it's like, Paul and I have figured out kind of what that looks like, of if I go speak somewhere or if he comes with me and we speak and I'm doing most of the speaking and he comes up for a Q&A or whatever. And so like, there are definitely times when, and just thinking about like Luca being born, I still very much want to help lead worship at our church. And so like, me having to leave in the mornings and Paul bringing Luca to church later, is that all of a sudden, Morgan, you're not being a good homemaker? No, it's like teamwork. And it's not like I'm doing this every day, all day long, peacing out, and Paul, good luck.
Yeah, well, and on that, I wanted to get to what a few people wrote in. I wrote over on my Instagram and said, my question box was, thoughts on women doing ministry while the husband cares for the home/kids. I put that next to my reel that I made and got some really interesting insight. So let's just go through some of these quickly just to give some other perspectives. And I also wanted to say real quick, the 4 women that we used on the thumbnail, Sadie Robertson, Beth Moore, Lisa Turkhurst. Them.
We have no idea what their ministries
I,
are.
I don't follow Sadie Robertson really closely. Ever
Yeah.
since she got married and had the child, I don't know what it all looks like. It was more just these are recognizable faces of women that do have ministries or
Yeah.
are involved in ministries on some capacity. All right, here we go. Some of the ones you guys wrote in. This one was interesting. She said, if that's where the Spirit leads them both, then that must be what's best for their family. I would say, okay, true, but let's not put too much emphasis on God's calling me to this. Let's kind of back up, search the scriptures, get wise counsel, because it can be a little too easy to just say, God has gifted me and he's calling me. I feel like I've just heard that a little too much.
Yes.
Yes, someone said, and I like this. This is the point you were just mentioning, Morgan, how you kind of plan to conduct yourself once we have Luca.
Mm-hmm.
Someone said, for a night or two a week, sure, makes sense. Full time doesn't sit right.
Yeah.
Someone said, God made us for different roles. Titus 2, baby. I personally think babies need a mama at home. Can a father fulfill the role of a mother at home?
No. And that's what we see is mothers trying to fulfill roles of fathers and fathers trying to fulfill roles of mothers, and it's not working. Okay, a child needs a mom and a dad, and the child needs the mother to fulfill the motherly role and the father to fill the fatherly role, and we need to stop trying to mess with that because we're ruining our children.
But wouldn't that kind of push back on us saying that there are exceptions if we make these strong statements of that a father being home 5 days a week with the child will not do what a mother?
I think if the exception is going on, so okay, we're talking about the exception, I think that even in the exception, the mother needs to make sure that she's home for a chunk of time each day or whatever, pouring into her children, pouring into her husband. And if that's not the case, then that's not the exception. That's totally unbiblical, and you need to rethink your life. Sorry.
Interesting. Let's keep going. Someone said, I don't like it. Women have such unique nurturing and hospitable traits in the home. Okay. Someone said, her number one ministry should be caring for her husband and kids. So if it's the occasional event, totally fine. If it's the norm, no. Someone said, this sounds strong, but it's rebellion against God's design for men and women. That does sound strong. And I think there is potentially a little more nuance than just it's rebellion. Like I said, I think there are examples in the Old Testament, and then the people who are like, women have no place and blah, blah, blah within the church dynamics. And it's like, well, you do see a number of people, female prophetesses, female, I think, deacons in the New Testament. So it gets a little more like,
deacons, not elders, FYI. And there's very different roles.
Let's pump the brakes a little on going too far into the, those things, but nevertheless, yeah. As long as the husband is still the spiritual leader of the family. And I actually saw someone close to us wrote me and said, as long as that's still in place, the woman can be called.
And to me, this is why it would be a very, the exception, because I think for most women, most anyone, you go out, you lead a bunch of people, you're their authority, you're in charge, and then you come home and your husband's all of a sudden in charge. That's going to be hard.
Let me read this. That's exactly what my last one says. It says, this is so good. Prayer over this is crucial. For me personally, it would challenge my submission to my husband, honestly, because of my personality dominating. I've been convicted to step down for him to step up.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
It is. That is crazy.
Very interesting. Guys, let us know your thoughts, because this is packed. Once again, if you're hearing this and you're like, I feel so confident in those around me that I'm submitted to, or like you're called to something really special. We're not trying to quench that. We're just asking that you would really take it before the Lord, humbly seek the scriptures, seek the Holy Spirit for yourself in regards to this. But we appreciate you guys hearing our perspective as we are seeking out the word. It's a big topic. And like Morgan said, she posted the links below. Mike Winger talks about this in a lot of detail, hitting a lot of the major things. So you can go look at his channel. Good stuff.
Good stuff.
Love it. Morgan?
Comment below.
Yeah, comment below. Just let us know where you're at with it. Let us know your thoughts based off of the stuff that we're bringing up, and your thoughts just on where you currently land on the topic. If you're a female that holds some type of ministry position, yeah, break it down for us. Let's keep the dialogue going. Morgan, any last words?
We love women.
We love women. I love women. I love women in a godly way.
One woman.
One woman, but I love all women. I just saw someone respond to our video on Matt Walsh, What is a Woman? And she said, I used to be conservative or like Matt Walsh, but I've come to the realization that Matt Walsh hates women. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, I could see someone being like, Paul and Morgan hate women, because we've been called like sexist.
I really
and
hope you guys don't think that's goofy.
people, I will watch this
I
video.
am a woman. How can I hate women?
People will watch this video and the doofuses will make claims. I love women. I just want it to be for the record.
We get it. You love women. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it at all.
I love this woman as my one woman. We'll catch you guys again very soon. Have hope.
And be free. If you're in the live chat, we'll be right back.
Hey guys, as you may have noticed, we get very few brand deals, which is why our patrons, the names you see here, are so important.
You guys really are the lifeblood of this ministry. We could not do this without you all. If you believe in this content and you want to partner with us on Patreon, click the link below or just go to patreon.com/paulandmorganshow.